because much of what I should have spoken has been spoken by the people's president. But first, to underline the fact that what happened in beginning 2020, and in fact before then, leading to the election of 2021, was never a democratic process. It was war unleashed upon the people of Uganda by Mr. Museveni, who was meant to protect them. And therefore, it is common knowledge to everybody who accessed the products of your cameras that the people of Uganda, Museveni was at war with the people of Uganda. We as the FDC sponsored the presidential and other candidates in this particular contest, not because we believed we win and be handed over power, declared and handed over power, because this was never going to happen under the kind of dictatorship that we attempt to play our politics. And therefore, the outcome of this election, the announcement, which we know was an allocation of results for different candidates, is something that we have already stated as a sham. We categorize this particular election as a fallacy and something that we would not accept as legitimate. And therefore, whatever Mr. Museveni wants to do, even in his wildest imagination, will not be accepted by the FDC. Now, the FDC was very deliberate about what it wanted to do in light of the sham election. First of all, to object to the outcome of the election, but secondly, not to repeat what we have done before. And so it shouldn't surprise anybody that whereas our friends have gone to court and we support them in the action, we chose as the FDC not to pursue that line because we've been there before. And therefore, to us, the only other alternative left is to pursue non-violent action against the junta who have politically robbed the people of Uganda of their right to be governed by people of their own choice. And therefore, we will be going in this struggle in association with the people's government. I believe it is also our duty to call on the other pro-democracy actors to be part of this campaign. And also to stress to the population that in doing this, we do not do anything illegal, because we are commanded under Article 3 to do whatever it takes to ensure that people who subvert the will of the population, of the citizens, those who overturn, abrogate our constitution, are dealt with by the citizens of Uganda. And this is really our clarion call to the people of Uganda, and particularly I speak to my members spread all over the country to be part of this struggle. I speak to our networks all over the country. Being a national party that has got networks everywhere, our leaders, Power 10 that we deliberately put in place to come to play in this kind of circumstances, to be part of this struggle. I have heard people talking about 2026, even before 2016 has been resolved. Now we have a new situation in our hands of 2021 and resolved. For how long will Ugandans continue piling unresolved political cases without tackling them head on? And I believe this is the call that we make today to everybody, Ugandan citizens and foreigners alike. And on Thursday, we will be talking to the European Union representatives in this country, those representing EU countries, on Thursday next week. We did speak with them prior to the election. We said to them they were not doing enough to ensure that the dictator is brought to his knees. They thought that one more election would probably help us to be proved wrong, but it hasn't. Because in the election of 2021, the presidential, the only constant person who has been in every election since Mr. Museveni came to power is Mr. Museveni himself. In fact, before he came to power, has been Museveni himself. All the other 10 candidates were new in the political scene in as far as pursuing the presidency of this country is concerned. What this party election has helped us to do is to prove wrong even the very optimistic people, players who thought that this election could bring change. It has also proved to us that it doesn't matter who is tackling Mr. Museveni. What matters is that Mr. Museveni, the dictator, still exercises dictatorial tendencies. Some people thought Dr. Kizza Besigye was an obstacle to bringing change to this country. He calmly said to them, there is the way. Follow that road. Go and exercise your right. The inference from this election is that Dr. Kizza Besigye has never been a problem in the democratic process of this country. Never. In fact, he's been the biggest solution to this, in hammering home his experiences and saying to us, this is not going to work. So 2021 has been a lesson to those who thought there were some people standing on their way, who thought democracy works. It has been proved that under this dictatorship, democracy is not going to be allowed to flourish. And so it would be foolhardy for anybody to think that something will change along the way between now and the election of 2026. I dare tell you that it's even going to get worse, because it's got worse progressively. You know what happened in 2001 was different from that happened in 2006, from 2011, from 2016, and a terrible situation in the election of 2021. And so to Ugandans, I would like to say, if you think that democracy works, sit at home. If you think that there is a problem for democracy to work in Uganda, then rise up to our call. This call is a call for the jobless people, young people who can't find a job in their own country, even if they qualify to do something. This call is about the destitute Ugandans who can hardly have a meal in a day. About those who suffer from a stolen election. This army of young people who had hope in this election, whose hopes have been dashed. This call is about them. It is about relatives, friends of those who have lost their lives in the cause of this struggle. About friends, those of us who have our friends, relatives, incarcerated in safe houses without hope of redemption, of freedom. This call is about them. Those who have suffered collapse in their businesses and have very little hope for survival of their families. This is what we are speaking about today. In a nutshell, we are speaking about the desperate people of Uganda. We should join hands with us to make their statement heard. Some 70, meanwhile, has continued even after the election of 14th to torment the people of Uganda. Troops of army men and police patrolling the streets of our towns and cities is certainly evident of the fact that we are dealing with a frightened Museveni, whose only other remedy is to call on the military to extend the war that it has fought through this election to beyond this election. Mr. Museveni, in a veiled attempt to try to reduce the anger of the Ugandan citizens, has begun to talk about dialogue. You reported the other day that he said, you know, there shouldn't be a mediator in any form of dialogue with the opposition. He knows where to find them. That is treating us casually. And we are going to reject this with the contempt that it deserves. As we have always said, if there has to be any dialogue, it has to be structured with a mediator, with a clear agenda, while we know who is going to participate in that dialogue. And knowing that Mr. Museveni is a trickster, there has to be a guarantor to whatever outcome comes out of such a dialogue. So I think Mr. Museveni has to revise our notes again so as to be reminded of what we have put as conditions for any possible dialogue. But while saying this, I think we are not going to jump into any dialogue because there are many unresolved and urgent issues that need to be tackled. I see Mr. Museveni biting the international community, but in the process, degrading whatever little democratic credentials we may have in suspending a fund that helped promote democracy. That is being done for fear of democracy itself. But in doing this, many Ugandans have been caused to suffer job loss, with the ripple effect going to beyond 10,000 individuals in this country from our assessment. And so maybe this should be a realization by the international community too, to recognize Mr. Museveni as a dictator. We, as the FDC, will not continue to accept lip service from a community that continues to support areas that improve on Mr. Museveni's ability to oppress the Ugandan population. I think that is all that I wanted to say, but to fully associate the FDC with the sentiments expressed by the people's government, and to say that we are going to remove our gloves and go into the trenches in the manner that we have always best known. Thank you very much.
Article 3! Article 3! Article 3!